So, you guys might have heard about these draconian voting laws that just passed in Georgia. Georgia lawmakers wrote this bill, passed it, went to the governor, he signed it, and it basically does a number of things to make voting in Georgia harder. Because, as you saw in 2020, Georgia may very well now be a blue state. I mean, for 2020, it was a blue state. It was what probably was the ultimate upset out of all of the results of the 2020 presidential election. Georgia went blue and voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. And then to further dig into Republicans, they went from having 2 U.S. senators from Georgia who were Republican to now having 2 U.S. senators from Georgia who are Democrats. So all around, Georgia is completely blue right now. Not at the state level, but at the federal level, it is. So obviously, when that happens, you don't go out and hit the streets and work hard to get more people to vote for you and your policies and your ideas and your ideology. If you're a Republican, you try to make it harder for black people to vote, for Democrats to vote, and you try to restrict the vote. And one of the most absurd parts of this law is the fact that it is now illegal in Georgia for someone like a volunteer to go give someone something as simple as a cup, a glass, a bottle of water while they're waiting online to vote. Now remember, in a lot of states, a voter could be waiting online for hours. Like we're not talking like an hour, 2 hours. We're talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. More sometimes, I'm sure, just to vote. And Republicans in Georgia made doing the simple act of providing them with a bottle of water illegal, because according to them, that could be considered bribing them for a vote. Well, Fox and Friends wants to defend this absurd law that was passed in Georgia, while the majority of people really do seem to be outraged by this. But, Fox and Friends has their wonderful take defending it. Here that take is.
The water argument is what cracks me up, though, because what line have you ever stood in? If you go to Yankee Stadium and you stand in line to get a ticket, do they serve you water? Do you care?
Just hot towels. That's all I get.
I have been voting for over 40 years.
I've never had water.
And I have never thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go vote today. Will they have snacks?
Right, absolutely.
I'm not worried about
Exactly.
snacks.
I know.
No water.
Right. Well, number one, you're probably not worried about that, Mr. Ducey, because you aren't black. You're not in a rural area. I'm assuming, being that you work at Fox and Friends, you work in the good old Fox News Corp building in the heart of New York in Times Square, and you're probably not in an area where you have to wait very long to vote. For people living in different areas of the country, they're waiting in line for a very long time to vote, and they probably are standing there saying, shit, I'm getting really dehydrated, I'm really thirsty, I'm really hungry, I'm not really feeling so well. This might not be worth it to stand online. I gotta go home. I need to lose my place in line. I need to go to the deli, get a drink. I need to hop in my car and drive to a restaurant and get a bite to eat. I'm just not gonna bother anymore. So there's one thing. But the second thing, and this when we were discussing the majority part earlier, we sort of started talking at first about the right to vote and how voting is not the equivalent to is much more important than what they were saying about standing in line at the for snacks at Yankee Stadium. But like I mentioned on the show, on the majority part earlier, I think we're falling into their trap by even having that conversation, because their analogy is faulted from the very start. Their analogy is faulted because what they did in Georgia was they didn't stop an ongoing program, like some sort of federally funded program to provide water to voters standing in line in the state on election day. There's not like some like funded system that they pulled funding from, or like some workers who were hired to hand out water whose jobs were made obsolete. That's not what we're talking about here. You know, if someone saw you standing on the line at Yankee Stadium for a hot dog and you were thirsty, they could voluntarily still go give you a cup of water while you're waiting in that line for your hot dog. It's still legal to do that if you're waiting online at a baseball stadium. The absurd thing is that this law has made it illegal for a good Samaritan, a volunteer, to just on their own accord bring someone waiting to vote a glass, bottle, cup of water. Like, their argument is so ridiculous because it's not analogous. There is no law saying you can't give me a bottle of water if I'm waiting online at Yankee Stadium for some Cracker Jacks. There is a law in Georgia saying you will be in trouble legally if you give me a glass, cup, bottle of water while I'm waiting in line to vote. You, not very bright people on Fox and Friends.